I sit at my parents' polished oak dining table, the one that's witnessed 34 years of Brennan family politics. Sunlight pours through leaded glass windows, catching dust motes that dance above the antique sideboard. The light hits differently here than anywhere else, warm amber that makes even my father's criticism seem temporarily gilded. More roast, Callie? Mom passes the silver serving platter before I answer. Her practiced smile never reaches her eyes. The pearls at her throat catch the light as she turns toward Wyatt. Darling, tell everyone your news again. My brother straightens his collar, the pale blue perfectly matching the country club napkins Mom insisted on using. His watch glints, a graduation gift from Dad that cost more than my first car. Rebecca and I are officially engaged. Wyatt beams, his teeth unnaturally white against his carefully maintained tan. Her parents are thrilled. Old Philadelphia family, you know. What wonderful news! Dad raises his crystal water glass. His eyes slid toward me for the briefest moment in assessment I've felt since childhood. To proper families and proper futures. I take a small sip of water, my throat suddenly dries. Congratulations, Wyatt. The clock in the hallway chimes 4 times. This house, grandmother's house, keeps perfect time despite its age. Like her, it stands solid against trends and tantrums. The curved archways and original hardwood floors whisper stories of 5 generations. Stories these people seated around me never bothered to hear. Maria, you can clear the plates now. Mom tells the housekeeper, who appears silently at her elbow. I smooth the simple linen dress against my knees. Nothing flashy, but well made, a stark contrast to Mom's designer ensemble and the tennis bracelet that clicks against her plate whenever she moves. Dad's golf tan complements his burgundy sweater, the uniform of a man who measures success by membership cards. Coffee arrives in grandmother's Wedgwood cups. The blue flowers around the rim always reminded me of her eyes, gentle but seeing everything. The china clinks against saucers, marking time until whatever's coming next. Wyatt clears his throat. Actually, there's something else we wanted to discuss today. Mom and Dad exchange glances so practiced they barely qualify as communication anymore. Yes, Dad sets down his cup with precision. We've been thinking about the future of this property. The air changes. Temperature drops a few degrees despite the sunshine. I feel it before I understand it, the way prey senses danger before identifying its source. The thing is, Callie, Dad slides a manila folder across the polished wood toward me. With Wyatt starting a family, we've been discussing the best use of family assets. I don't touch the folder. Assets? Legal documents, Dad says, tapping the folder with one manicured finger. For transferring your grandmother's house to the family trust. My coffee turns bitter on my tongue. Transferring my house? The family house, Mom corrects smoothly. It was always meant to be the Brennan family home for generations, not a single person's project. Wyatt needs a real home to raise a family, Dad continues, as though I hadn't spoken. You've had 7 years here already. 7 years. As if caring for grandmother during her final days was a vacation. As if returning home with my marketing career in ashes at 27 was some kind of victory lap. I inherited this house, I say quietly. Grandmother left it to me specifically. Which was a lovely sentiment. Mom interjects, stirring another sugar cube into her coffee. But practically speaking, Wyatt has real prospects now. A fiancé from a good family. Future grandchildren. The real message hangs unspoken, unlike you. Maybe you can find something near where Lottie lives. Mom suggests, mentioning my grandmother's former housekeeper with barely concealed distaste. Those apartments near the east side seem suitable for your situation. The realization hits me with physical force. They've planned this, coordinated this ambush around Wyatt's announcement. My family is sitting in my dining room, in my grandmother's chairs, plotting to take the home she entrusted to me. I feel heat rising in my chest, but my face remains carefully neutral, a skill honed through decades of Brennan Sunday dinners. I reach for the folder, my fingers steady despite the storm inside me. I'll need to review these, I say, my voice surprisingly level. Dad leans back, satisfied. Of course, it's just a formality. The trust lawyer can handle everything by the end of the month. The confidence in his voice, the absolute certainty I'll comply nearly breaks my composure. I stand, tucking the folder under my arm. I should get going. I have some work to finish tonight. I don't specify what kind of work. They've never asked. Don't overthink this, Callie, Wyatt says, his tone somewhere between condescending and concerned. It's what's best for the family. I nod once, not trusting myself to speak further. The walk to the front door feels longer than usual, each step on the 100-year-old hardwood a reminder of what they want to take from me. Later that night, in my home office, I opened my laptop. The screen illuminates my face in the gathering darkness. I type a short, encrypted email to an address I've used only twice before. Trigger documents. 9:15 a.m. tomorrow. I hit send and close the computer. In the quiet of the house, I hear grandmother's antique clock chiming the hour. Time to make choices that can't be unmade. Next morning, the doorbell chimes at precisely 9:17 a.m. I smooth my charcoal pencil skirt and adjust the cream silk blouse I reserved for closing deals. Through leaded glass, I spot Thema chaotic cluster on my porch. Dad's silver BMW sits askew in the driveway, one tire on the lawn. He always criticized me for not manicuring properly. I open the door before they knock again. Good morning. My voice carries the calm of someone who has rehearsed this moment for years. Please come in. Dad barrels past me, his burgundy golf sweater from yesterday replaced by a rumpled button-down. What is the meaning of this? Cloverbank Mortgage called me at 7:30. Behind him, Mom clutches her designer handbag like a shield. Her pearl earrings don't match her necklace a detail, so unlike her, it speaks volumes. Wyatt hovers at the threshold, his usually perfect hair uncombed, his eyes darting around as if seeing the house for the first time. Coffee? I gesture toward the dining room. The antique table now hosts my laptop, a neat stack of folders, and 3 leather portfolios embossed with BRH in gold. We have a lot to discuss. Discuss? Dad's voice rises. Cloverbank says you own this house through some company, that there's no mortgage to transfer. Brennan Revival Holdings. I walk past them expecting them to follow. They do. My company. Please sit. They settled into the chairs they occupied yesterday. The symmetry isn't lost on me. Mom's hands shake slightly as she arranges herself. What game are you playing, Callie? Wyatt finds his voice, though it lacks yesterday's confidence. I turn my laptop toward them. The dashboard gleams with property addresses, value assessments, and ROI calculations. This isn't a game, it's a business. My business. With 3 keystrokes, the screen shifts to a scrolling portfolio: apartment buildings, commercial properties, historic homes, and vacant lots transformed into revenue-generating investments. 26 properties. I let the number hang in the air, currently valued at approximately $4.7 million. Dad's banker eyes widened, calculating in real time. Mom's mouth opens but produces no sound. Wyatt leans forward, scanning the addresses until recognition flashes across his face. That's... He stabs a finger at the screen. That's our building. Hancock Plaza. Your firm's lease expires in 2 months. I meet his gaze evenly. Davidson Partners has expressed interest in the space. They're willing to pay 12% above market. Dad's face flushes crimson. This is absurd. You can't possibly own the building where your son works? The one you advised me on was a foolish investment at the chamber dinner last year? I retrieve a folder and slide it across the polished wooden echo of his gesture yesterday. The same building you told the Kensington Group would be a maintenance nightmare when you heard I was considering properties downtown. The silence stretches between us like a taut wire. You've been. Mom struggles to find words appropriate for her country club vocabulary. Playing house caretaker while secretly buying property? Not secretly, privately. I opened another folder. Remember when I asked to discuss business at Thanksgiving 3 years ago? You suggested I focus on finding a nice man who knows about these things. When I mentioned real estate at Christmas, you changed the subject to Wyatt's promotion. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes the half hour. 10 chimes until I need to be downtown. Who would loan you money for all this? Dad's banker brain is still searching for the flaw in my foundation. The telephone interrupts with perfect timing. I press the speaker button. Morning, Eleanor. You're on with my family. Good morning, Callie. Eleanor Hayes' voice fills the room crisp, professional, formidable. I have the updated lease agreements ready. Shall I review the terms? Please. Mom's face drains of color as Eleanor details the formal lease agreement for the family home. $2,650 monthly, 2-year minimum term, security deposit required. This is outrageous. Dad stands abruptly. I'll contest this. Our family lawyers will. You'll need new lawyers. I close the folder calmly. I bought out Martindale and Reed last year. They're part of my business holdings now. His mouth opens and closes without sound. For the first time in my life, Douglas Brennan has no words. Wyatt finds his voice first. How did you manage all this? Where did you get the capital? Perhaps you should have asked that question years ago. I turn slightly. Lottie, would you mind joining us? Lottie Green steps in from the kitchen, her silver hair caught in morning sunlight. At 76, she stands straighter than my mother ever has. The woman they've always referred to as the housekeeper holds a leather portfolio identical to mine. Miss Lottie was grandmother's silent partner in 3 rental properties. I explain. When you all were too busy to visit, she taught me what grandmother had taught her: how to see value where others saw only surfaces. Mom's shoulders stiffen at the revelation. Another piece of family mythology crumbling. The lease agreements need signatures by Friday. I stand, signaling the end of our meeting. My downtown office can handle the paperwork if you'd prefer not to return here. Dad's face darkens with the threat of an explosion. You can't possibly expect. I expect exactly what you've always expected, Dad. Business is business. I gather my laptop. Family is family. Yesterday you decided which mattered more. Wyatt stares at the property list, lingering on his firm's address. The power shift registers in his eyes, the first authentic emotion I've seen from him in years. I walk them to the door, professional courtesy in every step. As they file out in stunned silence, I call after them. Oh, and Wyatt? Congratulations again on your engagement. I close the door on their retreating figures and lean against it, allowing myself 5 seconds of vulnerability before straightening. Through the window, I watch Dad's BMW back carefully off my lawn, as if only now realizing he's on someone else's property. Lottie places a weathered hand on my shoulder. Your grandmother would be proud, child. The validation I never received from my family washes over me, warm and genuine. But the day is young and I have an empire to run. On Wednesday that week, the country club of Grand Rapids rises like a fortress on manicured grounds, its red brick exterior housing generations of handshakes that built this city. I park my Volvo Practical, paid off beside Dad's gleaming Lexus and Wyatt's leased BMW. The contrast isn't lost on me. Inside, the scent of lemon polish and old money hangs in the air. Portrait paintings of founding members stare down from walnut-paneled walls, their eyes following me across the carpet. Dad chose this battlefield deliberately. Here, surrounded by the symbols of his success, he believes I'll crumble. He waits at his regular table near the window, back straight, silver hair perfectly combed. Mom sits beside him, fingers twisting her pearl necklace. Wyatt paces nearby, phone pressed to his ear, voice low but urgent. Callie. Dad rises slightly when I approach, a gesture of courtesy rather than respect. We appreciate you coming. I slide into the leather chair across from them. Your message mentioned an emergency. Wyatt ends his call and joins us, collar unbuttoned, a thin sheen of sweat on his forehead. Nice of you to make time in your busy schedule. Douglas, please. Mom touches Dad's sleeve as a waiter approaches. Let's order first. Just coffee. My voice carries more authority than it would have a month ago. The waiter nods and retreats. Dad leans forward, lowering his voice. This situation has gone far enough, Callie. Your mother hasn't slept in days. This will kill her, you understand? Mom dabs at dry eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. My health isn't the issue, I say, accepting the coffee placed before me. Neither is Mom's sleep schedule. Listen to yourself. Wyatt's voice rises enough that heads turn at nearby tables. He catches himself, leans in. Do you understand what you've done? Mackenzie Palmer canceled our dinner last night, said they weren't comfortable socializing until our family matters were resolved. The name registers Wyatt's biggest client prospect. I taste victory, bitter and sweet on my tongue. And just this morning, Dad continues, Bill Harrington called me personally. Wanted to know if there was trouble with the Brennan finances since you've apparently been meeting with his investment group. I sip my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Bill's considering financing my next 3 properties. This is insanity. Dad slams his palm on the table, rattling the china. Where did you even get your initial capital? Who would loan money to a woman with no banking connections? I finished for him. FHA loans on the first 2 properties. Private equity from investors who believed in preservation. Then I reinvested every penny of profit. Mom shakes her head. If you needed money, you should have come to us. I needed respect more than money. Wyatt snorts. Is that what this is about? Some childhood grudge because we didn't praise your finger paintings enough? No, I meet his gaze steadily. It's about sitting at the dinner table for 30 years listening to you dismiss everything I cared about while you plotted to take my home. Your home? Dad's face flushes red. That house has been in our family for 5 generations. And grandmother left it to me. Not the family's trust. Not Wyatt. Me. The waiter approaches with a coffee carafe. Dad waves him away with barely contained fury. I've spoken with 3 different attorneys, he says once we're alone again. There are ways to challenge an inheritance when the beneficiary clearly lacks. My attorney will be happy to speak with your 4th lawyer. I place my napkin on the table, though you might have trouble finding one locally. Eleanor Hayes has connections with most firms in the area. Mom gasps. Eleanor? From the foundation board? She's quite effective. You recommended her yourself at a garden party once. Said she was terrifyingly thorough if I recall correctly. Wyatt's phone buzzes. He glances at it and his face drains of color. This is Brad Thompson. He looks up at me. He's canceling our lease renewal meeting. Davidson Partners made a competitive offer for that space. I don't mention that I've already rejected it. Let him sweat a little longer. You can't do this. Dad's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. I've called in favors at Michigan First. They're reviewing your loan portfolio. I refinanced through Clover Bank 6 months ago. I stand, smoothing my skirt. Dad, your banking connections can't touch me anymore. Then I'll make sure everyone in our circle knows exactly what kind of daughter you've become. Mom's voice trembles with anger or fear, perhaps both. They already know. I shoulder my bag. Lottie ran into you at Kingma's Market yesterday. Quite a scene from what I heard. Mom's cheeks flame. That woman had no right to speak to me that way. That woman helped me secure my first investment property while you were telling the Hendersons I was finding myself after a nervous breakdown. Callie, Wyatt stands, desperation replacing anger. Be reasonable. We can work something out. We already have. I place my business card on the table. The family home lease agreement expires Friday. I'll need your decision by then. Dad pushes the card away. This isn't over. It is. I turn to leave, then pause. Oh, and Wyatt? I heard rumors about restructuring at Lakewood Partners. Might want to update your resume. The sunlight outside feels cleansing after the stifling club atmosphere. I drive straight to Oak Hill Cemetery, where rows of granite monuments march across the hillside. Grandmother's grave sits beneath a maple tree, simple and elegant like her. I place fresh gardenias beside her name, the scent filling the spring air. They never saw it coming, I whisper, touching the cool stone. Just like you said. Her voice echoes in my memory. They'll never see your worth until you own it yourself, Calliope. Tears come suddenly, not from pain but release. For years I'd hidden my success, seeking approval that never came. Now I stand in the sunlight, owning both my accomplishments and their consequences. My phone buzzes with a text from Eleanor. Douglas hired Sampson's firm, already called to discuss settlement options. I smile through my tears. Tomorrow I'll sign the lease for my new downtown office above Madcap Coffee. The business plan for the River District revitalization sits ready in my briefcase. 6 years of quiet work are finally bearing fruit. Across town, Wyatt faces restructuring rumors. Dad discovers his banking favors have limits. Mom learns that social standing is as fragile as crystal. I placed my hand on grandmother's headstone one last time. I'm ready for whatever comes next. As I walk back to my car, my phone rings. It's Wyatt. I let it go to voicemail. Some conversations can wait until the ground beneath us all has finished shifting. A month later, at the office, the glossy business card between my fingers reads, Wyatt Brennan, former senior account executive. Former. Such a small word to mark such a seismic shift. I pin it to my office corkboard with deliberate care, next to the newspaper clipping from last week featuring my latest downtown restoration project. He called again this morning, Eleanor says, setting a fresh coffee on my desk. My attorney's silver hair catches the morning light streaming through the tall windows of my downtown office. Third time this week. Let me guess, more threats about family reputation? Eleanor's laugh comes quick and genuine. Quite the opposite. He wanted to know if you'd be willing to provide a reference. The coffee scalds my tongue. I set it down too quickly, sloshing liquid onto the quarterly reports. Wyatt Brennan golden child, heir apparent, country club darling needs my reference. His company cited family complications in the termination paperwork. Eleanor continues, dabbing at the spilled coffee with a handkerchief. Apparently, uncertainty about their building lease created shareholder concern. The building I now own. Did you know, I say, turning to the window overlooking Main Street, that Dad stopped golfing at Lakeview Country Club? Membership dues suddenly became unreasonable. The world tilts on unexpected axes, doesn't it? Outside, workers install the new sign on the Victorian building across the street, my newest acquisition. The fifth property I've purchased since that Sunday dinner 1 month ago. Each transaction is another brick in a wall between my past and future. Francine called Lottie yesterday, Eleanor mentions, settling into the leather chair opposite my desk. Apparently your mother's bridge club has dwindled to just her and Margaret Phillips. The one whose husband owns half the car dealerships in town? The very same, though I hear she only showed up to ask about investing in your next property. A laugh bubbles up from somewhere deep inside me, surprising us both. Not malicious, just genuine amusement at life's strange symmetry. For years, I was the family disappointment. Now I'm the sole Brennan with financial stability. 2 more mortgage applications came through this morning. Eleanor says, sliding folders across my polished desk. Both historic properties on Cherry Street. The bank approval was unusually swift. The same bank where Dad once wielded influence like a scepter. The same loan officers who once dismissed my business plan now expedite my paperwork. Did you see this? I handed Eleanor yesterday's newspaper, folded to a quarter-page spread about community revitalization. My photo appears beneath the headline. Local entrepreneur preserves city's architectural heritage. Your grandmother would have loved this, Eleanor says softly. She knew before I did. I touch the vintage watch on my wrist. She left me the house because she saw what they couldn't. My phone buzzes with a text from Lottie. Your father is at the doctor's office. Blood pressure concerns. Don't worry, Helen from the pharmacy keeps me updated. Small towns have their advantages. News travels without effort, carrying on currents of coffee shop conversations and pharmacy whispers. Another text follows immediately. Francine tried joining the Historical Society board. They suggested donor status instead. The society where I've been treasurer for 3 years. I should feel vindicated, triumphant. Instead, something unexpectedly tender unfolds in my chest, not quite pity, not quite compassion, but something adjacent to both. Mrs. Coopersmith called, Eleanor mentions, gathering her notes. Wants advice about her daughter's real estate classes. The same Mrs. Coopersmith who told me investing in those old buildings was foolish at last year's chamber dinner? People recognize success when they see it. Eleanor stands, straightening her impeccable suit, just like they recognize failure. After she leaves, I sit alone in the quiet of my office. The antique grandfather clock in the corner, salvaged from a condemned hotel, ticks away minutes in the same measured cadence as the one in grandmother's hallway. My hallway now. I don't call Dad about his blood pressure. I don't text Mom about her social standing. I don't reach out to Wyatt about his job search. Their problems aren't mine to solve, just as my success wasn't theirs to claim. Yet I don't block their numbers either. The afternoon light shifts, painting gold rectangles across my desk calendar. 3 properties under contract, 2 renovation projects nearing completion. One community foundation grant application pending for the historic theater restoration. My empire built not on revenge but on vision. My success is measured not by their downfall but by my creation. The receptionist buzzes an hour later. Miss Brennan, your brother is here. My finger hovers over the intercom button, a heartbeat of hesitation. Send him in. Wyatt looks different. Smaller somehow, without the protective shell of family expectations. His collar sits slightly crooked, his eyes lacking their usual confidence. I've been waiting downstairs for almost an hour, he says, remaining standing even when I gesture toward a chair. Nice coffee shop. One of my tenants. Right. He shoves his hands into his pockets. Of course. The silence between us has weight, decades of competition compressed into molecules of air. I underestimated you, he finally says, each word costing him visibly. We all did. For the first time in our relationship, I don't interrupt. Don't defend, don't explain. I simply listen as the grandfather clock marks time between us, each tick a tiny monument to change. Thursday that week, I spotted them the moment I walked into Giovanni's my parents sitting at a corner table beneath vintage photographs of the Italian coast. The restaurant's amber lighting casts a forgiving glow over Mom's worried expression and Dad's too stiff posture. Not a chance meeting. Their Mercedes parked right next to my usual spot confirms what I already knew. An ambush disguised as reconciliation. Mom waves, her bracelet catching the light. I nod to the hostess and walk toward them, my heels clicking against the terracotta tiles. Callie, Mom rises, arms extended for an embrace that feels rehearsed. What a wonderful surprise. Is it? I settle into the chair across from them, placing my bag beside me. Your car is parked next to my regular spot. Dad clears his throat, adjusting his collar. Always observant. The waiter arrives with water and takes our drink orders. I request a Cabernet while Mom orders her usual Chardonnay. Dad sticks with sparkling water. Doctor's orders for his blood pressure, no doubt. You look well, Mom says, studying my face. That cream blouse is lovely with your coloring. I thank her, though we both know this conversation isn't about fashion. Beneath the table, I notice Dad's fingers drumming against his thigh, his telltale sign of rehearsed talking points waiting to be delivered. We've been doing some thinking. Dad begins once our drinks arrive. He leans forward, his voice dropping to that authoritative banker's tone that closed thousands of deals. About family legacy. About forgiveness. Douglas. Mom touches his arm, her eyes suddenly wet with tears. Let me. She turns to me, voice quavering. Callie, we're not getting any younger. Family should stick together, especially at our age. I take a slow sip of wine, letting the silence stretch between us. Giovanni's fills with the sounds of other diners' forks against plates, genuine laughter, conversations without agendas. Mom, Dad, I place my glass down carefully. I appreciate you reaching out. I do. Dad nods, relief washing over his features. Too soon. But I need you to understand something. I continue. When I returned home years ago, you saw it as a failure. When I cared for grandmother, you saw it as wasted potential. When I inherited her home, you saw it as something to control. Mom starts to interrupt, but I raise my hand gently. I'm not angry anymore, I say, surprising myself with the truth of it. But I won't pretend those years of dismissal didn't happen. Remember when I tried to discuss my first property at Thanksgiving 4 years ago? You changed the subject to Wyatt's promotion. When I mentioned real estate classes, you suggested I focus on finding someone instead. The memory of their exchanged glances that day still stings, but the pain has dulled to a distant throb rather than an open wound. We were concerned, Dad says, his voice softer than usual. The market was unstable. You were embarrassed. I corrected him without heat. And that's okay. I don't need your approval anymore. I love you both, but my life and my business decisions aren't up for family vote. Mom's hand trembles as she reaches for her water glass. Then why agree to meet us? Because you're still my parents. I'm setting boundaries, not cutting ties. Dad straightens his silverware, buying time. What exactly does that mean, practically speaking? It means I'll join family gatherings where I'm treated as an equal adult. It means questions about my business come from genuine interest, not judgment. It means accepting that my path is different but not lesser than what you imagined for me. The waiter appears to take our orders and we pause. I request the eggplant parmesan, suddenly hungry in a way I haven't been during family meals in years. After he leaves, Dad attempts a different approach. The country club is hosting a business mixer next month. Perhaps you could attend as our guest. Make some connections? Before I can respond, I spot Wyatt entering the restaurant, scanning tables until he sees us. I'd texted him earlier my own strategic move. I invited Wyatt to join us, I say as he approaches. The surprise on my parents' faces is genuine. Our last family gathering had ended with Wyatt storming out after learning about my ownership of his office building. Hope I'm not interrupting, Wyatt says, pulling up a chair. His tie is loosened, his usual polish slightly dimmed after weeks of job searching. Perfect timing, I say, reaching into my bag. Mom and Dad were just leaving. Their confusion is palpable. But we haven't even ordered, Mom protests. I need to speak with Wyatt privately, I explain. We can continue our conversation this weekend, at my house, as family, not as negotiators. After reluctant goodbyes and Mom's lingering backward glance, they leave. The tension at the table dissipates like fog burning off in the morning sun. I slide a manila folder across the table to Wyatt, watching his face as he opens it. Head of Legal Strategy at Brennan Revival Holdings, he reads. Eyebrows rising. This is a job offer? The base salary is less than you're used to. I say, pointing to the compensation details. But there's real equity. Not a handout, Wyatt. A position you'll earn through actual work. His fingers trace the company logo in oak leaf, grandmother's favorite. Why would you do this? After everything? Because you're good at what you do. Because beneath the competition you understand property law. Because we're still family, even when it's complicated. His hand shakes slightly as he signs the offer letter without argument a first in our adult relationship. I've been jealous. He admits the words clearly difficult for him. For years, I convinced myself I was concerned about your choices. Truth is, I envied how easily you walked away from expectations. It wasn't easy, I corrected him. Just necessary. I need to ask, will Mom and Dad really be at your house this weekend? I nod, filling him in on my plan as our meals arrive. For the first time in years, we talked without keeping score about grandmother, about property values in the historic district, about his fiancée's family pressure. Real conversation. No pretense, no competition. When I described the revised lease agreement I've prepared for our parents, a bit different from the month ago, his eyes widen. You're really going to make them sign a rental agreement for their family home? For my home, I corrected him gently. And yes, some boundaries need paperwork. He raises his water glass in a toast. To the sister I underestimated. I clink my glass against his. To second chances, earned, not given. I pour coffee into grandmother's Wedgwood cups, the familiar blue flowers dancing along the rim. Sunlight streams through the leaded glass windows, catching the silver serving tray where it's always sat for Sunday dinners. 6 months can change everything and nothing at all. This roast is excellent, Dad says, accepting the cup with a nod that contains more respect than 30 years of previous interactions. His burgundy sweater matches the season, but the country club insignia is noticeably absent. Lottie recommended the local roaster. I settle into grandmother's chair at the head of the table, a position that once would have seemed impossible. They source directly from farmers. Mom straightens the linen napkin in her lap. I visited that shop yesterday. Margaret from the garden club mentioned their pastries. The conversation flows with new rhythms. Words once bitten back now spoken freely. Names once dismissed now referenced with interest. Wyatt arrives last, kissing my cheek before taking his seat. Sorry I'm late. The Henderson contract needed final revisions. You're making good progress with them, I say, watching his face brighten with earned pride rather than entitlement. The doorbell chimes. That'll be Lottie, I announce, rising to welcome her. Dad stands too, something he never would have done 6 months ago for someone he once classified as the help. The subtle shift speaks volumes. Lottie enters wearing a coral dress that complements her silver hair. She carries a small bouquet of fresh-cut flowers from her garden. These tables have turned quite nicely, she whispers as I hug her. Her knowing eyes hold decades of wisdom about families and their complicated dances. We settled around the dining table, the same polished oak surface where they once tried to take my home. Now they pay rent with both money and respect, the lease agreement framed by relationships rebuilding brick by brick. Douglas, Lottie addresses my father directly. Your suggestion about the Miller Street property was spot on. The Historical Commission approved our proposal yesterday. Dad straightens, pleased. The original moldings were worth preserving. I noticed similar features in the Westfield building downtown. The conversation turns to business naturally, without the forced exclusion of previous years. Mom asks thoughtful questions about the neighborhood revival project. Wyatt outlines the legal strategy he's developing to protect historic properties from developers. I never thought I'd enjoy corporate law outside the big firms, he admits, helping himself to more potatoes. But there's something satisfying about building something with real community impact. You always had good instincts, I told him. You just needed the right application. The grandfather clock chimes in the hallway, marking time that now flows forward instead of stagnating in old patterns. I always knew you'd build something lasting, Callie. Lottie says during a lull in conversation. You see value where others see only surfaces. Her words bridge generations of women who understood worth beyond society's narrow measures. Later, as spring sunshine warms the garden, I stand alone at the window watching them. Mom and Lottie discussing perennial borders. Dad and Wyatt examine the repaired porch railing. Family reforming around truth instead of pretense. Tomorrow I'll mentor 3 young women interested in real estate investment. Next week we'll close on the Thompson building, another historic property saved from demolition. The business grows alongside healing relationships. I touch grandmother's watch on my wrist, feeling her presence in every corner of this house she entrusted to me. The journey from invisible daughter to respected businesswoman required no validation but my own. Some walls need not be torn down but simply remodeled, with the original foundation kept intact. Some keys unlock more than doors.